Hey guys, it's your boy Frady's Films. Today we are going to be talking about how to fill out the I-129F form for the K-1 Fiancé visa. Couple disclaimers. First of all, this is by no means legal advice. I am definitely not an immigration attorney and I do not work for the USCIS. So, these are just some tips and tricks that I found when I was filling out my I-129F that I thought might be pretty useful for you guys out there. So, without further ado, let's get started. All right, so let's get started with talking about what is the K-1 Fiancé visa, of course, and why do we need the I-129F. Today, I'm going to also be following along with you with my own I-129F, so I can give you the most accurate advice for you guys. So let's start with what is the K-1 Fiancé visa. It allows a United States citizen to bring a fiancé or fiancée, a man or a woman, to the United States for the purpose of marriage and becoming a lawful permanent resident. Okay, so a U.S. citizen obviously files the I-129F as the first stage in order to get their fiancé to move from whatever foreign country and be able to marry the U.S. and ultimately become a green card holder. So we are only going to be talking about the first step here today, the I-129F. However, there are more steps that are involved, which I'm sure most of you, if you're watching this video, have done your own research to know what the process looks like. But like I said, the first step is to get the I-129F checked in and sent out. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is what the form looks like. You can find this on the web straight from the USCIS website, which we'll talk about a little later. But first things first, this section up here is only for the USCIS. So there's nothing for you to fill in this top section here. So you'll come down here and get started with part 1, information about you. So there's two words that are used a lot in the K-1 Fiancé visa, as well as the I-129F. It is the petitioner and the beneficiary. So the petitioner is going to be the U.S. citizen that is writing and sending in this I-129F, saying that I, as the petitioner, want my beneficiary, which is the foreign fiancé, to move here to the U.S. to join me in marriage and ultimately become a green card holder. So part 1, information about you. This is the U.S. citizen. Okay, so we have our alien registration number, which you might have, you might not. A lot of this is going to be, every situation is different, of course. Some of you might have something like this, some of you might not. It just really depends on your situation. So I'm purely going off of what I saw for my situation, as well as any tips and tricks that I know of. So you'll write in your alien registration number here, your USCIS online account number if you have one here, and then this is probably the first big one that most of you will fill out is your social security number. Also, another note, I highly recommend doing this on Adobe Acrobat. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Do not try to fill this in on Google Chrome, any sort of Chrome browser fill-in or anything like that. Absolutely a no-go. Ultimately, when you print out this form to send it in, you are going to have problems with your printing format, and this barcode down here might get cut off. So, you know, when you spend a lot of time on something like this, you want it to be as uniform as possible, of course. So it's really important to just try to use Adobe Acrobat, because the printing and so on and so forth will end up making it much easier to fill in and save your progress as well. Okay, so you're going to fill in your social security number here, and then you're going to move on down here. So select which one you're requesting, either the K-1 or the K-3. I submitted mine for the K-1 visa, and honestly, I'm not really sure, or I don't know too much about K-3 visa, but I'm assuming the I-129F is necessary for both processes. So choose which one is applicable for you. If you're filing to classify as K-3, have you filled in I-130? Again, this is a K-3 option only. So if you're filling in for the K-1, go ahead and click this box, or K-3 this box. Your full name, so obviously your last name, first name, middle name, pretty straightforward. Go ahead and write those in there in English. And then other names used. If you have any other names for whatever reason, write them in here. And again, unless it specifies to do something, most of your stuff is going to be either typed or written in black or blue, but maybe not blue, I would use black pen, which, you know, you should type. Like, let's just be real, you should type. So, and it's all going to be in English until there's one section in which they state, like, write in your beneficiary's native alphabet, etc. We'll get to that. Your mailing address, this is going to be your information here. So in care of name, I wrote my name here, street number, etc., etc., etc. And is your current mailing address the same as your physical address? You'll say yes or no. And this is important for the next section. So now let's talk more about information about you and your address history. All right. So we're going to talk about our physical addresses for the last 5 years. So with this form, there's a lot of information that they're going to request that seems a bit redundant, or maybe it seems a bit expired, or like, why do I need to put that? Always give more information here. Always be very transparent and give more information than less. Always, always, always. For example, here, the last 5 years, if you've moved 8 times in the last 5 years, I don't care if it's for a week that you slept at your buddy's house, anything, write it down. Put everything. Just go ahead and make sure you do it all, because you're going to spend a lot of time on this, and chances are you just want to be as efficient and give them as much reason to pass you as possible. You do not want to get an RFE, or a request for further evidence, I believe it's called. You just want this to go as smoothly as possible and get your, get your fiance over to the U.S. in whatever situation. So here, it's saying your address for the last 5 years, and provide your current address first if it is different from your mailing address in 8A to 8I. So we would need to go back here and see this section here. Okay. So if your current address is different from your mailing address, then it will go here, right? And if you need extra space to complete this section, then you will go and use an additional information page, which can be found at the end of the I-129F form, which this is going to be your best friend right here. This additional information page, this last page, is going to be your best friend. You're going to use this page a lot. You're going to use it for additional physical addresses. You're going to be using it for additional job history, places you've lived, places you've worked, etc. So let's keep moving on. So down here we have our physical address 1. This is going to be where obviously you write where you're currently living, different from your mailing address, write it here. And then physical address 2, so on and so forth. So if you've only lived in the same house for the past 5 years, great, then you don't have much work to do here. But if you've moved around a lot, maybe you met your foreign fiance in their country, then you would probably need to go ahead and include all that information here as well. Okay? Moving on, your employment history. Okay, so this is your last 5 years inside or outside the United States, which is important because there's probably a large number of you that lived abroad or worked abroad and met your fiance there. In my case, I met my fiance in Japan when I was working in Japan. So that means I need to include my employer here. Okay, so you'll write your full name of your employer and the address and all of this stuff. And you want to be very diligent on this and make sure you find the correct information and get it filled out properly. Okay, again, if you have more than 2 or 3 jobs that are listed here, if you have more than these 2 employers here, then you'll want to go to the additional information page at the end and write in that information. Okay, let's keep moving on. More information about you. And this is obviously other information. So you'll mark your gender, date of birth, marital status, and then your village of birth or city or town, your province or state of birth, and your country of birth. Okay, just type it in or write it in here. This is information about your parents, okay? So this is you as the U.S. citizen. This is your parents, okay? So you're going to be writing in for your 2 birth parents. You're going to be writing in their last name, first name, middle name, date of birth, country, etc. And then for parent number 2, we'll go here. Okay, when we get to number 37 here, have you been previously married? We have 2 checkboxes. So you will see this a lot on the I-129F form as well. It'll be like a yes or no question, and then it will follow up with something like this. If you answered yes, then move on to such and such and such. But if you said no, then you don't need to provide this information here. So have you ever been previously married? Yes, then you need to write your previous spouse. But if no, obviously you have no previous spouse, so you can just move along from this section here. Okay. Citizenship information. You're a citizen through which? Birth, naturalization, parents. So this is all going to depend on your situation. And then we'll keep moving on here. If you have a certificate number, a certificate of citizenship, then you'll write your number here, the issuance, and the date of issuance. Now, this is more information. Have you ever filed I-129F for another beneficiary? So this is obviously a different person. If so, again, this is one of those, if yes, then you come down here to items 44 through 46 here. But if no, you don't need to fill this in. Then what action did they take? You'll write what they did. Now we come down to children. So again, do you have children? Yes, no. If yes, you have more work to do. If no, you can move along. Okay? So you'll write about your children here. Now this is going to be applicable for basically anyone that has been living in the US since your 18th birthday. You're going to need to write or click or fill in what state you've lived in, as well as the country. So if you've lived in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, California, and Maine since your 18th birthday, again, you're going to need to go to your additional information page and make a note of that. Let them know. Be transparent. Again, it's super, super important to just give more information than less. It's going to help you a lot in the long run, I promise. Okay. Now, part 2, information about your beneficiary. So beneficiary, again, is your foreign fiance or your fiance who is trying to move to the US. Okay. So this is going to be their last name, their first name, their middle name, and this part's going to be in English as well. Okay. If they have an alien number, a US social security number, date of birth, fill in all their good stuff right here. And then this is other names used for them. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving on. Mailing address for your beneficiary. So this is the best place to reach them through mail. What for, later down in the process, they're going to get some paperwork that they're going to need to receive. So their mailing address for the beneficiary would be in care of name or whom it's going to, and then, their street name, etc. And then again, their address history. Again, be diligent. Make sure you write everything down. Put more on the additional information page. Go ahead and label everything here. Fill this in as well. If they've had 7 addresses, you've got more work to do. Go to the additional information page. Write it in. Okay? Same with their employment history. Same thing. Their name of their employer, their street name, number, apartment, suite, floor, etc. And again, if they have more than 1 or 2 listed here, additional information page. Okay? Information about their parents. So this is going to be their family name, given name, middle name. So you're going to need to write this here and their parent number 2 here. It's basically identical to the about the petitioner section, but the beneficiary is just to give the USCIS as much information about them as possible as well. Has your beneficiary been married? Yes, no. If yes, come here, fill in this. We've seen this before. Now, this one's unique to this section. Has your beneficiary ever been in the United States? So if you have a fiance whom has visited the U.S. for tourism, maybe they were a student here, anything like that, you're going to check yes or no. If yes, then you're going to need to fill in A through H, which can be found here and here. Okay, so you would tell what they entered as. And then you're going to want to go online and look for what's called an I-94. This is basically a record showing how many times they've entered the U.S., what they were doing here, how long they stayed for, where they flew into, where they flew out of, etc. This is basically to give USCIS an idea of how long they've been here, how many times, if they ever overstayed, anything like that. So you're going to go online and search for an I-94, and then there's going to be a place where you can put in their passport number, or you can put in their name, I believe, and it's going to give you their record number. So try to get as much information as you can and put it on this form for them, because it's going to help speed things along for you, again, in the long run. So you'll put their number here, the date of arrival, that date authorized stay or will expire. So you'll see this on the forms here, the I-94 or the I-95. You'll see these on these forms online. You'll write the beneficiary's passport number, any travel document numbers they might have, and then the country of issuance for passport, so wherever they got their passport from, and the expiration date for their passport here. Okay, so this one's important. If they've never been to the US, no problem, but if they have, you're going to have to do a little homework here. Does your beneficiary have children? Again, if yes, then you will start filling in this information for their children. All right, so you also have to write the child's physical residence here, and so on and so forth. Okay, next section, address in the United States where your beneficiary intends to live. So this is where they are planning on moving to. There's a good chance it's going to be your address, I would assume. Maybe not. Every situation's different. But when we look here, we can fill in our address or where we think that they will be moving to. So if you have 123 Main Street in, Los Angeles, California, you'll pop all that information in, and then the telephone number, the best way that this residence can be reached, maybe a mobile or a home phone or something. Okay, so this is your beneficiary's physical address abroad, so where they are living right now. Fill all this in right here. Okay, so up until this point, everything has been written in English. This next section is going to be where things are going to be a little different depending on whom your fiance is. So in my case, my fiance is from Japan. So obviously Japanese is a different alphabet than English or any sort of Western language like that. So your beneficiary's name and address in his or her native alphabet. So if your fiance is from maybe an Arabic speaking country, then you would write this section in Arabic. If your fiance is from Korea, then you would write this in Korean. If they're Chinese or something, you would write this in Chinese. You can do the rest. So you're going to need to get with them, unless you're a speaker of that language. You're going to need to get with them and have them help you fill this out. Okay. Moving on, is your fiance related to you? Yes, no, or not applicable because they are my spouse. Again, this is going to be kind of unique for your situation. Fill this in to the best of your knowledge. And then you'll provide the nature of their relationship. And this part is super, super, super important. This is probably the most important part of the whole I-129F and K-1 fiance visa process. Have you and your fiance met in person during 2 years immediately before filing this petition? So this means, have you guys met, and is it a bona fide marriage? Or is it a bona fide engagement? Is it going to be a legit marriage when it actually comes time to getting together, tying the knot, etc.? So in this form and in this submission, you're going to need to provide evidence that you guys have met in the past 2 years. So if you say yes, you're going to need to provide evidence saying that, yes, we have met. We have pictures of when we met. This is maybe a receipt of our engagement ring. These are letters that we've sent to each other back and forth. These are passport stamps. These are hotel reservations. As much as you can give within reason. Obviously, don't submit, multiple picture books of you guys together. Just make it concise and make it authentic. Make it show that you guys are truly in love with each other and you're, a regular couple willing and ready to move to the US. So this is where you need to be very diligent. I would not get overly creative here, though. It's good to just send in the pictures as is, maybe get some printed, film pictures or digital pictures printed. Send those in, maybe on the back of them, sign oh, this is, me and my fiance, and this is her, his mother, and grandma when we had a dinner at so-and-so, provide who's in the picture, talk about what's going on in the picture. Talk about when it was, maybe write the date. Again, more information's better. Not overload, but definitely give more than less. Okay, so some people have circumstances that they deem is, I believe an extreme circumstance. I'm not sure what the wording is that USCIS uses, but if you answered no, you need to explain your reason for having an exemption of why you could not meet in the past 2 years. So you're going to need to write that in here. But if yes, then you're going to be submitting these pictures as part of a checklist. Okay. Moving on, we have our international marriage broker. So if you used a broker, this section's for you. You're going to be using whatever broker's information here. Write all of this, and then the address of the broker. The consular processing information. This is where your beneficiary will apply for a visa outside of the U.S. So depending on what country, you're going to need to find out where their consulate or embassy is in the country that handles the processing of the K-1 visa. For Japan, it's in Tokyo, I believe. So for me, in my case, I would write Tokyo and then country Japan. Okay, so let's keep moving on. This is criminal information. So this is a part, again, where you need to be super clear and super transparent. Don't hide anything here. Have you ever been subject to such and such restraining order, permanent protection? Yes, no. Any of these crimes, violence, etc., etc. Yes, no. Any of these crimes? Yes, no. And then 3 or more arrests or convictions? Yes, no. Okay. So even if you said no, 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 if you keep coming down here, you're going to see more information about this. So if this was a yes up here, you're going to be filling in this. And this part right here is, I believe, some people have a little trouble with this area right here. So, have you ever been arrested, cited, charged, indicted, convicted, fined, or imprisoned for breaking or violating any law or ordinance in any country, excluding traffic violations, or something that was alcohol or drug related, a fine of $500 or more? So, in this case, let's say you got a super speeder ticket and you had $1,000 fine, like really expensive speeding ticket. This is more than $500. So you would need to provide evidence, which we can see down here. If yes, provide information about each of those arrests, citations, charges, etc., 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 in the space below. And if you are subject to an order or anything like that, you need to provide police records, court records, etc. You're going to need to dig for these records. So if you had, let's say you had, even if you're 40 or 50, let's say you had a drinking charge when you were 18 years old in the US, you're going to need to dig and find those court records and find those police records. If you had that super speeder ticket, you're going to need to dig and find those court records. Okay. Obviously, if it's something that's listed up here, that's going to be something you have to provide information on as well. So people get tripped up on this part. But like I said, always be more transparent. Give more information. Don't make it a hassle for them. Just give it and let it be. Okay, do your homework and get your paperwork right. Okay, enough on that. Let's move on. So this is for people that have waivers and filing waivers. So you can check these boxes here if you have any sort of waiver. But if you don't, or if they're your spouse or whatever, then check the appropriate box. Okay, biographic information. Now, this part can be confusing, but this is for the petitioner. From my research, this is, again, this is not legal advice. I don't know 100%, but this is based on my research. This is biographic information about the petitioner, the U.S. citizen. So you'll put in your information here. Okay, your race, ethnicity, height, weight, eye color, hair color. Now, this is the petitioner statement down here. So read the petitioner or the penalty section, etc. This is where you're basically swearing that this is all legit, that you wrote it, that it's all been done by you or whomever helped you, etc. So you'll check these boxes. I can read, and I did this myself, or I had an interpreter or someone at my request. And then this is your contact information as a petitioner. Then you'll come down here, and this is the most important part of the I-129F right here. This is the most important part. The petitioner's signature. This is what causes the most drama and the most causes of delay and all kinds of stuff with the USCIS. This part right here must be signed with a pen. You cannot type your signature here. You must sign with a pen. You must. Okay? So obviously it cannot be submitted digitally as well. You have to actually physically mail this form into the USCIS. So you're going to print all of this out and you're going to sign right here, and do not forget to sign. In fact, I signed all of my paper. I signed my papers at the bottom. I signed my photos. I signed all kinds of evidence that I had. So, but this is the one that is an absolute must and is required. Sign here. And then obviously your date of your signature. Okay. So we have our interpreter section as well. If you had an interpreter help you fill out this form, you're going to write their information here, as well as their mailing address, their contact information, and then this is their certification. All right, so this is important. I did not use an interpreter or an attorney for my I-129F, but if you had any sort of interpreter or anything, then their signature is going to be also extremely important. Anytime you see signature, make sure it's with a pen and make sure it's done. Okay, if you had a preparer, which is a little bit of a different thing, if you had a preparer here, then you're going to want to put their information as well as their names, contact info. And then here is the preparer saying, I'm an attorney or I'm not an attorney, etc., which they'll know more about this if they helped prepare this statement for you. And again, their signature here. Okay, so this is the last page of the I-129F, and this is your best friend. This is the additional information section. Okay, so chances are you're going to have 3 or 4 of these pages if you had multiple places you've lived, or employment history, or if your beneficiary had multiple places they lived, or employment history, etc. You're going to want to get these printed out and filled out as best you can. So your name here, if an alien number here, if you have one, And then you're going to go and write the page number, the part number, and the item number, and then the information here. So let's say we come back to employment history, for example. Right here, your employment history, we would be on page 2. Our item number would be 13, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in here. So for example, if we wanted to say our employer 1, or we had a third employer, then maybe we would write 13 through 16 and write the information exactly as it's listed like this. So you'd write their name of employer, street number, town, state, etc. Okay, so be diligent and make sure you print out a lot of these if you have more information that you need to give. When you go to the USCIS website on like the advice on how to fill in the I-129F form, they have a very simple example. The imaginary person that they used does not have multiple addresses they've lived in or multiple jobs they've lived in. But I think for most of us, realistically, we're probably going to have more information that we're going to need to list. So with that being said, you're probably going to need a few of these pages. And again, I would sign off on these pages. Why not? There's no place to sign, but again, better is more. Okay. So that in a nutshell, my friends, is some tips and tricks to fill in the I-129F form. And before we finish, let's take a look at some other helpful tools here for when we're looking at our timeline for the K-1 visa. So if we go to the USCIS website and look at the I-129F page, they also have instructions here, which are really helpful. Like I said, it's a bit of a simple example, but they are good to look at and use for your reference. And there's some other information here that's very important. You're going to need to know where to file this. There's addresses here. Filing fee, it's not free to file this. You have to include a check or something like that, which again, make copies of all of this stuff. I might make another video about like submitting everything, kind of like a checklist. This video is really concentrated on the form itself, but I might make a video like that. But then we'll come down here to the checklist, okay? So this is going to be, before you send it, you're gonna need all this information attached and put in with the form. So depending if you guys like this kind of thing, I might make another video about that and just see if, it's helpful for you guys as well. They also have some filing tips here. Again, don't forget to sign your form. We will reject any unsigned form. This is the big one. Don't forget to sign. Special instructions and related links. So this is straight from the USCIS, but there are, there's one other USCIS link that's pretty useful as well. You can check your processing time. So once you submit your I-129F and you get your NOA1, which is your first notice of action, you can come here and, well, not to this page particularly, you can go to a more case-specific page, but if we come here and look at the wait time for the I-129F here, form category, K-1234, Field Officer Service Center, for reasons that are unbeknownst to me, most of the cases end up at the California Service Center, and I don't know why that is. It could just be where they end up filing and kind of, pushing most of them to, but California Service Center seems to have a lot of the K-1 fiancés and I-129Fs. So if we come here and look at the processing time, we're looking at about 15.5 months. So I think coronavirus made a bit of a backlog there, and that was kind of a, it just made the process a little bit longer. It used to be somewhere around 6 months, I believe, but this is kind of what we're looking at today. And finally, this website here, visajourney.com, is going to be your best friend. This is basically a forum for anything to do with U.S. immigration. People on here are extremely knowledgeable. They are all people that have dealt with immigration in one way or another. And overall, they're just really experts. And people here are super friendly, and they will give you advice if you ask. So I'm not going to dig into this website because there's a lot to see here. But this website is a really good tool if you're having a question, but you don't know who to ask. This website is full of people that are also very experienced in this field. So without further ado, folks, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.